All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm James. Some of you, if you were on Twitter, might have seen Pixelboot. That is my username. I just go online by that name. I do a lot of Android projects related to AOSP. I know probably most of the conference today and yesterday were mostly app development talks, but today we will do something different. Worry not, it's going to be very easy to follow, even for people who have never even heard about the word AOSP or don't know what we're getting into right now, but I'm sure it'll be interesting for many of you. Okay, so let's get started. As an agent, Agent Gatt, it is like the most priority for me to select a partner. So the first step in this journey is to select a companion Android device. We'll see what requirements I need, what are the main points, what are the main targets I need to check off the list. And yeah, I mean, what's the fun in the mission without having a device? Followed, obviously, as like humans, devices also age. So the prospect of end of life, what does it mean? Does it mean death? Does it mean like we go to an afterlife? What does it mean for Android phones after the end of life? Which kind of segues perfectly to Android custom ROMs and their open source nature. So open source projects, custom ROMs. We'll discover a bit of both and how they relate with each other. It'll all make sense, I mean, very soon. And obviously, what's the point of looking at custom ROMs as a prospect without installing them? So with that device we chose, we're going to see how it died and how we're going to continue its lifespan with custom ROMs. It's a mission that we will venture forth slowly as we go. And obviously, there has to be some source code for us to analyze. Beneath the surface understanding, trying to know what's going on, how we can change things, how things can become better, and personalize them for ourselves whilst looking ahead. So, it's 2017. My role is for an Agent 1. Of course, instead of Agent Bond, I'm Agent Gatt. The MI6 were like, okay, we need you on this role. Your phone's going to be an incredibly useful tool, but we also need to make sure that you're up to date, you're using the latest API level, you're encrypted with like security patches, making sure that you're safe, so the latest Android vulnerabilities are patched on the go, because we can't have anything confidential going out and about in the public. So I was like, okay, my choice of phone is the Pixel 2 XL. Google's flagship in 2017 with the Snapdragon 835, 4 gigs of RAM, and at that time, the latest Android 8.0 Oreo. So, yeah, it's not yesterday or last year with Android 13, but it's Android 8. It was ahead of its time. So, okay, I put at the cart on that thing, and yeah, I was pretty happy. I'm like, this phone's going to be lasting for a while. I spent my cash so that I have a flagship processor, and in theory, it should spend some time with me, yeah. So, as we can see here, I started with 8.0 Oreo with API level 26 in 2017, 8.1, Pi, 10, 11. So far, so good. There's also like betas that I can enroll to, so I can get the latest features before the full stable release. And for the most part, I was doing my work. I had the latest security patches on a monthly basis, and the MI6 was like, yeah, great job. You're doing some great agent work over here. But what's going on after 11? Like, Android 12, in theory, should be a thing here? Not quite, because Google has X support for the Pixel 2 XL. It's end of life. So, what does end of life mean? If you gloss over those requirements I had before, so I had the latest API level for apps. Now Android 12 has came out, and it's a newer API level, which I am one step behind. Security patches, it's December 2020. Stuck on that for good. So January 2021, January 2023, the years to come obviously won't follow because the Pixel 3, the Pixel 4, and the Pixel 5 are getting those, whilst I'm still stuck on Android 11. The performance, I'm going to lose some features. The Google feature drops for Android are not being merged to my Pixel 2 XL. So the Monet, you know, the theming engine for Android 12, I want to make my phone look colorful. I cannot because it's out of support. You get the gist of this, but in reality, you always think that there's one solution to this, which is buy a new phone. Okay, yeah. I don't know if the MI6 forgot about me, but my balance currently stands at €21.37. So I was looking for the Pixel 8 Pro in sky blue 128 gigabytes because I like that color. 799 without, I mean, the shipping's free, but I mean, I'm a bit short of the funding there. As you can see, we don't question what happens on Thursday and Wednesday when I spent all my money. But, some things happen, and obviously, it's a bit of a pity either way. Even if I had 799 to spend, 3 years later, and Snapdragon 835 is something I can't use anymore, especially for my secret agent roles to do. So, yeah, there must be another solution, no? I can't just, get fired now, can I? So, Android custom ROMs. I just did a couple of Google searches. Maybe some of you might have wrote, this phone Android 12 or like Android 13, even though it's on Android 11, and you see Android custom ROMs. So what are these? Like some names have Lineage OS, others have Pixel builds, CR Droid. What are these? These are custom ROMs. To explain them in short, they're unofficial distributions of the Android system. So in this case, we merge AOSP, we modify it, we make it work for a device, and we publish it. So at base level, this is still Android at heart. So in this case, the Android at heart for my Pixel 2 was Android 11. In this case, I got that version, put it to 12, and adapted my device source codes to 12. We'll get more to that later. I'll explain how this works in a more higher level detail. So alternative way of saying this is it's a stock alternative for me to use on a new basis. It's made by the community, so obviously Google has no part to do with this. They only send you updates via the OTA manager. But in this case, it's a bunch of hobbyist developers like me who forget to sleep and keep working on Android till 2 a.m. So yeah, it's a different kind of situation than what you have in a full OEM factory, which is distributing patches and updates. Yeah, a lot to say. There's a lot of people doing this. I feel a bit lost though. Okay, I know what it is on roughly, but in the whole prospect, not really. But since it's a community project, there's also a community to help you. So myself and probably many others, after finding a Google search, using communities like XDA developers or 4PDA for people in other areas, and even Telegram groups, endless supply of Telegram groups for support on every single ROM, giving you live chat access with the developers and some other users who found it easy to get started and choose their flavor of custom ROM, unlock the bootloader, which I'll explain later, etc. So, okay, let's start from there. My case, xdadevelopers.com, and I went on Pixel 2, XL. In this case, I went into the forums, the ROMs, kernels, recoveries, and other section. And as you can see, there's 4 different flavors at the top of the list over here. So there's Pixel builds, there's Lineage OS, there's CR Droid, and a bit of flavor with Tequila OS. I'm not going to try drinking my phone, but okay, that's interesting. So as you can imagine, different developers have different tastes for ROMs. Maybe some people want these apps pre-installed. Some others want no apps pre-installed. Some people want GMS services compatible. Others want to de-Googlify their phone. So as you can tell, this is probably the gateway to your choice of custom ROM. But in my case, I'm going for Pixel builds. Pixel builds is a custom ROM distribution which I work on alongside a team of other developers, mainly supporting Google Pixel phones. But in this case, it was a perfect prospect. So Pixel 2 XL, Pixel builds on Android 14 quarter patch release 1 on API level 34. What does that mean? That means I can get back to work. Great. I can use the latest apps, they won't crash on me. I'll have the latest security patch on April 2024. And everything just works. So it's a very recent custom ROM distribution. I started working on it in August, and truly the motivation was to keep my old devices in my cupboard running the latest version of Android instead of collecting dust. So great. A few more other reasons why to choose custom ROMs is not only do you get monthly updates, There's also weekly and nightly updates you can get if you really want to update your phone every night. But it's an option. It shows that the community source is always up to date. There's always people ready to keep making devices better, working the custom ROMs ways for older devices to have the latest features working, maybe camera, maybe microphone, maybe a newer version of the camera app which has greater features for your sensor. It's pretty much everything. Obviously, Pixel builds Pixel 2 XL is under my control, so I ensure and test everything about the device prior to releasing it. So in that case, you can say it is bug-free. But obviously, since this is a community project, we work hand in hand with users to be like, hey, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. Maybe hotspot with Bluetooth on crashed my dialer app. And thanks to that, somebody can send me logs. I can receive those logs, see what's going on, and it's a team project. Freedom? Yeah, of course. Maybe you had Google Play Store pre-installed, and you're like, well, I kind of lost my Google account's password, so I need to get an alternative store, blah, blah, blah. You can do that. You can root your phone, you can do a team engine, you can make it rainbow when you put down your notification slider, you can have an infinite option of settings, and maybe make your clock on the right instead of the left, because Android changed that from Android 9. Add the seconds counter in your clock. Get a different launcher. Always on display settings. Anything you can imagine is something that custom ROMs can probably do on the lower side of the platform. But can you trust it? Okay, so somebody else in the community is making custom ROMs. Sure, you can trust it. You have the latest security patches up to date, which is still better than all the exploits that exist in Android 11. Some custom ROMs, like Graphene OS, also allow you to lock your bootloader so that nobody can tamper from the outside level and take your data. We'll explain more about bootloaders later. But yeah, it's an opinion you can make. These are the features that you get. And obviously for me, needing the latest API level, then it's a no-brainer. Prior to that, here's a small caution. Obviously, this is not uninstalling an app and reinstalling it. This is a matter of case where you are wiping your system level and putting a new operating system on top of it. So instructions are there to be followed. They are not there for appearance. You don't put them there on your fridge and then say, okay, they're there in case I need them. They are there to be used. Anything that may go wrong, extremely wrong, can brick your phone. So be careful. It is quite easy to follow, and if you get to it, you'll get used to it. But do be careful, especially when there's repartition involved with this. So, now that that's over, mission AOSP. First, we'll discover what AOSP means. Probably some of you are thinking of some acronyms. Guess if anybody saying Android first is correct. OSP is something I'll get to the next slide. Bootloaders, unlocking the bootloaders, recovery images. What recovery should we be doing? What does that mean? I'm installing a new operating system. I'll get to that. ADB, sideloading a custom ROM. Some of you fellas know ADB, raise of hands. That's good. I won't be speaking gibberish then. That's something which we will use to sideload a custom ROM. And finally, we'll analyze the source code. So let's get started. AOSP, Android Open Source Project. What you see here on this section is a mock-up of what a Gerrit platform may look like. Some people may call it Gerrit. Okay, Gerrit, whatever. It's like GIF and GIF, GIF and GIF. But the main aspect here is that Gerrit encapsulates the main reason why Android is open source. It's a community team effort. Anyone in the developer space can go to Android's main source code and push a patch to it. So push a change. I can say, I don't know, I want this security issue solved. And then other developers may contribute to that, make it better, and even Google itself, with their Android team, can merge that into main stable Android, which can get distributed to other ROMs, stock ROMs, OEMs, etc. So it's a big thing, even on the global scale, but also used on lower scales. So let's see AOSP as a main thing. It is meant to distribute, establish, and expand. So Distribute, Android open source means that it's free. I can take anything from what Google releases on day one, whether it's the latest code for Android 14, 15, 16, 14, 13, 12. It's a big code repository, and I can make use of it for free. Obviously, even for app developers, you can use the integrations within AOSP to make your apps work with Gradle, for example, etc., etc. Distribute is that. Establish is getting all those repositories and putting them together to make an Android ecosystem, which will then compile and make it into a flashable zip file for our phone. And expand by being free, even as a company itself, when looking for an operating system, I can make use of AOSP. So no charge, no limits. I can download the code, modify it for myself, and distribute it to others. Similarly, my custom ROM and many other custom ROMs have also an internal Jared platform. So in this case, we are more open to what we do. Obviously, device source code is over here, once Google is a separate department. I can say, I want to push this to official. I want to add this to the lineup. I want to add support for this brand of smartphone. So yeah, also, you can join the Pixel Builds team by just using the Jared platform, joining the team, releasing builds. It's a team effort which cannot be done solo. Okay, now that's established. We know a bit about AOSP, a bit more about Pixel Builds. Let us talk about bootloaders. So, bootloaders are pretty much in every device. If it's your toaster, if it's your smart fridge, if it's your smartphone, it's taking you from power-up sequence to the operating system. Now, if your toaster is smart, then it goes into the operating system. In case of old toasters, you don't have that. But point being is that you can, in this part of system, you are lower than you think, and then you keep going up according to your boot sequence. So eventually, we'll interrupt the bootloader to get into different partitions of our device. But for now, we'll just explain how it works. Why do they exist, in a sense? It is meant for you to be secure from attackers who get hold of your phone. So in this case, if my phone is lying about and somebody takes my phone will have a locked bootloader which will assign itself to the pattern. So if I have a pattern on my phone, a PIN code, it will be encrypted. The bootloader will make sure that that remains encrypted even when taken. Now, in our case, where we're going to do system modifications, temporarily, we're going to unlock our bootloader. That is why we are getting to this point in time. But yeah, it essentially can give you access to many different things you maybe didn't know of for now. So let's unlock the bootloader. I'm sure you might have looked at developer options. You might have gone into the About system, hit the build number 5 times, and it tells you are a developer. And then you went back and you went to developer options. Something you may see here is OEM unlocking. If your phone is carrier locked, that is probably grayed out for good, because carrier locked phones do not have unlockable bootloaders. That is contractual agreements, etc., etc. But in this case, I bought an unlocked Pixel 2 XL, which means I can use any SIM card, and I have that option available. I tick that on, and Android is like, okay, you can now unlock your bootloader. So, great. I open platform tools over there in the terminal. I get my phone. I just hold volume down and power for like 10 seconds, and you get this nice screen where there's like, well, on Pixel 2, there's an Android with an open door. On newer ones, they removed that Android. I don't know why. But point being, you run that command, it'll tell you, okay, do you want to unlock your bootloader? Are you sure of what you're doing? If you're sure, then just hit yes. Be warned that your data will be wiped. This is because it starts on a clean slate, and make sure that even if you have taken somebody's phone and unlocked their bootloader, you can't access it. It'll be a flash state of Android. So that is the reason why. And should be a good time to tell you to back up your cat pictures, your dog pictures, your fish pictures, etc. They're going to be gone. Okay, so now that we're unlocked, I mentioned the recovery partition. And that's exactly what we're going to do next. So the recovery partition will give us access to wipe the old and flash the new. So in this case, Pixel Builds provides a recovery image using ADB again with the same terminal. We're going to use the fastboot command saying fastboot flash boot, boot.image. Since this is a recovery partition, all you need to do is hit the keys, and there'll be recovery options, recovery mode, and you just go into recovery mode, or use the fast boot reboot recovery. And you have that nice screen over there, saying reboot system now, apply update, factory reset, and advanced. In this case, what we're going to do first is format our data. Although it's already been wiped, we're going to remove the OS and start afresh. So there you go. You go there, apply update via ADB, and from your phone, you're going to locate the zip file of your new custom ROM distribution. It'll be pixel builds date version.zip or something like that. Some people have code names for which version, if it's official, unofficial, etc. But all you need to do is just go to that. After you've done that, go get yourself a coffee, because it'll take like 10 minutes, and yeah, you'll be back with a new custom ROM. In fact, I'll take a coffee but water by myself as a small break. Great. ROM is installed. There we go. Notice anything different? Yeah, we're running Android 14 now, with a nice new green look to it, as the Pixel Builds team looks. And we are running the latest version of Android 14. So, let me just go back and find the requirements of what I had for an agent phone. API level, yep, I'm running API level 34. Security patches, I am on April 2024 and soon May 2024. So CVE exploits have been patched, and I am good to go. And the software is also stable, so I'm ensuring that when I open the camera app, I don't have a bazillion crashes and reboots. So that's good. With a few bonuses, I can now customize my phone. I can say this app is installed, this app is not installed, etc., etc. Maybe some perks of adding the clocks in the second, having this behavior when I boot my phone. Maybe even when I root my phone, I can tell it to do different custom tasks and roles. So it's a great thing to have. Maybe I might use those as well. Okay, so now that we know how it works on the higher end, let's go to the lower end. Do not be scared. This is Pixel 2's code. So in advance, I'm going to tell you that these names were not made by me. These are Google's code names for phones. And Pixel 2 XL is named Wahoo. Okay. So you might be asking, okay, why is there in a device, a kernel, a vendor with their subdirectories being Tamen, Wahoo, and Walleye? So before I get into the technical requirements of what these mean, Wahoo is Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL combined. So these devices are very common to each other, so there is a lot that they share. In this case, they put that in the Wahoo tree. Device has the makefiles and configs for those. Whilst Tamen and Walleye, the big and the small Pixel 2 version, 2 and 2 XL, have their own configs in Walleye for small and Tamen for the large phone. For the kernel, it's all common. The kernel is a repository that is similar to Linux, so if some of you heard Linux version 3.14, 3.4.14, they're kernel versions that run on laptops, PCs, servers, and also your Android phone. You can check that in your About system as well. It's written under your build version. So that is that. If I want to update that eventually, some developers who are skilled can also merge the newer kernel versions from Wahoo. So if I have the drivers of Wahoo, I can import them to 5.14, for example. I don't know how to do that. That is too skilled for me. So I stay off that territory and work with the kernel version that I have with Google. And vendor. Vendor is a directory where you have pre-built binary files. So in this case, something.so. If you try to open them with Notepad, you'll just have 101111001111. So don't try to read that. It doesn't make sense. They are pre-built for a reason, to link symbols together. Might of you say, what are symbols? Hopefully you don't need to face them, because they're scary. But in other sense, there might be like camera blobs, which mean that, okay, I am pointing to this part of the phone, and this is working as intended when I open the camera app. So the camera app is pointing to that, and it is showing me an interface of how my phone's camera looks like. So in essence, might be still a bit scary, but at least less scary when seeing Wahoo in your terminal. In a global sense, we have the Android source code. So these blocks represent different main components of the Android repository, which there is a lot of, by the way. Using the repo tool, you could sync this, and you'll have everything together. So the device source code is done. Obviously, you might see that there's common and the device specific. So if I'm working with Qualcomm, which is the chipset made for the Pixel 2, the Snapdragon 835, there will be device/Qualcomm/SE policy, which is there by default. You don't need to work on that, and it will just work out of the box. Device, kernel, drivers, vendor, and packages, those are normal. Some custom ROMs may have vendor/custom ROM, and then they have their apps in there. So, I don't know, I want to have a different camera app. I put vendor/custom ROM/camera. You can dictate how it works like that. The build system, I'm sure compilers may not be your thing, or maybe they may be your thing, but they're all there. Do not modify them, or else you have a ton of errors on Linux, and you will have a night, or no night, of sleeping. The ART runtime for Dalvik, basically these are pre-configured essence of the AOSP source code, where they make sure that your memory management with Java apps are being used correctly. libcore for those apps to work, and the system. So Apex, Core, Init, that is something which we might get into in a harder talk. But to be known for Android, it is frameworks, AV, base, opt-and-native. So the logic of Android works in framework/base. Framework/base basically is a 7 GB repository. It always just aches my heart when I download that, because all my internet goes down at the moment. But make sure that that is there, and when you make your custom ROM, it will probably have a lot of changes in framework/base, so that security is up to date, the Android logic is working, etc., etc. Native and AV, they might handle video and even like transcoding separately. Bionic is C libraries. Again, those are in binary. Don't read those unless you're really bored. And pre-builds and toolchains will make sure that you're compiling really well. Hardware will dictate the common aspect of Qualcomm devices in a directory, and radio will make sure that you're picking up your calls when you install your custom ROM. Packages is probably where I can get to everybody here with common aspect of saying there is the uncompiled version of an app. So when you have your Android Studio directory, for example, you have your folders, and that's not compiled. That is in there, and then the whole compiler will make sure that those are compiled into APKs, which are sideloaded on top of Android. So yeah, now you can say that you know a bit of all the perspective of what goes beneath the platform surface. Maybe this was automatic for you, and you weren't aware of anything which is going on here, but now you do. But I can get into a detail for a whole nother mission. So maybe a follow-up to that would be interesting, but let's go back. Let's take a step back and recap what we have succeeded today. Oop, there we go. So, mission success. We've discovered what AOSP is. I have discovered what custom ROMs are, what's AOSP. I can contribute to AOSP now and discover what's going on, maybe push a change of my own. Installed a custom ROM, so I kept my job. So maybe the 21 euros will increase in that due course. Unlocked the bootloader, learned what it was, and yeah. As probably my experience could be used for anybody else. Maybe you have an old device in your drawer. You can find a second use for it and extend its lifespan, reduce the e-waste, and the possibilities are endless. So if you want to go make your own custom ROM, feel free. If you want to contribute to Pixel Builds, I am here. I am happy to hear your questions now. Thank you.